Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is our guest this morning. Let's go on the record. Taking new steps to solve the crisis at Mass and Cass. Her move to take down the tents and the tarps and open a new space for the homeless. After making her announcement, she's with us. She's in the chair this morning. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding. Charmin Saketi, as you can see, is off this Sunday. And as you can see, joining me at the table is Boston's Mayor Michelle Wu. And the mayor is joining us to talk about her new steps to end the crisis at Mass and Cass. So let's get right to it. Great to see you, Mayor. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So you announced on Friday that the city will ban tarps and tents on the sidewalks. You'll need the city council's, first of all, let's go step by step. You'll need the city council's approval for the ordinance?
Yes.
Yes. And that could take up to 2 months before you get that?
That's correct.
So any physical change could not likely happen within these first 2 months. What does the first step accomplish?
We are at a moment where it's time to double down on the public health approach that has been delivering a lot of progress in the area, hundreds of individuals served and even connected to permanent housing, while also having built up the housing and services infrastructure enough that it is time to address the growing concerns around public safety, to dial up the plans there, and to give the Boston Police the authority that they need in order to react very quickly and deliver the long-term plans that will allow us to open the street back up to standard vehicular traffic like any other road in the city of Boston.
Right, and this in a sense will give the police the authority to do that? I mean, effectively, this should do that?
So there are three components of what the city is
doing.
Three
components, right.
First is an ordinance that would directly empower the Boston Police to be part of removing the tents and tarps that have really shielded the violence, criminal activity, weapons, human trafficking, and much more that's been happening there. Second is to allow for the significant transition of the street in dispersing some of the crowds and really targeting that criminal activity by making sure that no one will be left without anywhere to go. And so we're creating some additional transitional beds and expanding shelter capacity in many of our shelters.
How many beds?
So we're looking to serve up to 30 people who will potentially be displaced from shutting down the tents on the street. Many, many more of the people there already have housing and are using the tents for other purposes.
And that part might be in anticipation of the next thing. 30 doesn't seem to be enough. I don't know what the number is. I don't know what the population is down there, but 30 doesn't seem to be enough.
I think it's hard to, if you're just kind of driving by and taking a quick look at what's happening, on your way to work or somewhere else, it can be hard to understand the dynamics and how it's different now compared to, let's say, 3 years ago or even a year and a half ago. On average, there's about 200 to 230 people there during the day. A very, very much smaller number of those folks actually are in need of housing. Most everyone else has housing already, and there has been growing drug dealing and violent activity happening because we have built up the housing and services to serve people and get them into the right spots and move along the pathway to recovery. And so now it's time to make sure that all of our workforce is safe and that we're bringing it all together before it gets too cold and people are out on the street in winter.
We talk so much about Mass and Cass. We dedicate a lot of time during a newscast to Mass and Cass. You must dedicate even, exponentially greater amount of time to Mass and Cass. But Atkinson Street and Southampton are also, is it fair to say they're also crisis zones? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, again, it's different than what it was.
Yeah.
Before I came into office, after the Long Island Bridge had come down in 2014, there had been hundreds of people living there for multiple years in a row in wooden structures that they had constructed because they were nowhere else to go, propane tanks. No daily street cleaning. It was incredibly unsafe. The sanitation was an issue, and it was very, very dangerous. Since then, we have now provided hundreds of units of housing, helps people transition, and the tents that go up and down with daily street cleanings and everyone moving around and power washing the whole area. It's really made a big difference, but we need to ensure that safety is always present and that infrastructure can support returning the street to normal operations.
So this new plan will completely shut down Atkinson Street to the public. Businesses will still have access. So that means moving services that are provided, for example, by an emergency center there to a new space on nearby Mass Avenue. So how does that work?
Yeah, right now there is an engagement center that the city had opened up several years ago on Atkinson Street. There are some clinical services that are there, and there was some day programming, which has not actually been running as often because of the concerns around public safety anyway. So those clinical services will be relocated temporarily. That site will be shut down as we transition the street, just to ensure that there's clarity about the use of that street and to help stabilize everything. And as we get back to Atkinson Street, being part of the normal flow of traffic, as we get back to figuring out where everyone is and coordinating so that other neighborhoods are also not experiencing this kind of impact, we expect to be in a good place in terms of connecting people to services who need it, but then eliminating the violence and criminal activity.
Isn't reality, though, this is really just moving those services to a place where the problem was concentrated, about 7-8 years ago? So how does that solve it? By moving it back to where it was, how does it solve anything?
So sorry, I didn't go through the third piece. I was going through my list.
No,
so
go ahead.
The legal language to empower action, the additional housing and shelter space to accommodate that disruption for folks, and then significant operations in terms of Boston Police in partnership with public health and our outreach providers. There will be a sustained presence on Atkinson Street and in the area. There will be mobile teams that are set up to respond in other neighborhoods of the city, and there's going to be a 24/7 command post there, basically a central operations post that will allow everyone to be in real time adjusting what's needed, understanding who needs outreach, who needs services, and making a plan for how we react with during this transition to make sure everyone has what they need.
And to that very point, the Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox was with you on Friday's announcement. Law enforcement will have a critical role in the plan, as the mayor just said. So talk about what will be done now that hasn't been done previously. In other words, now, or why wasn't it done 2, 3, 4, 8, whatever number of years ago?
Yeah. 2, 4, 8 years ago, there wasn't the infrastructure for housing and supports that we have today. There are 170 people currently living in beds that were created that didn't exist before. It's a model that the state has now adopted and is expanding in other cities outside Boston as well under this new administration. So there are 6 other sites in addition to Boston's that are based on what we've learned here. And our police commissioner, when he came into his post a year ago, MassonCast was one of the very first things I put on his list. And he's taken the time to put his own leadership team in place to get a sense of measuring what's happening, understanding the seasonal changes, because it is different in summer versus winter and fall. And now we've gone through that, and we feel prepared on the infrastructure side, the services side, to really boost up and empower what's needed for public safety.
I know we're talking about the city of Boston, but you've talked to Governor Healy about this. What was her reaction to it?
The governor's been incredibly supportive in terms of how to understand the many, many interlocking and complex pieces around the opiate crisis, homelessness, and mental health. In her years of public service, she's spent a lot of time and political capital really getting at the roots of the opiate crisis. So she and her team have been a partner. We're working together, staying closely engaged on not only these efforts for safety and outreach, but planning for Long Island, considerations around the Shattuck, and how everything will be fitting together in one system.
And speaking of Long Island, another component in all of this revamping is the Recovery Center at Long Island. The media was given a tour of the facility last week. It is, as you would expect, it's in rough shape after being shut down nearly a decade ago. The city is also moving ahead with plans to rebuild the Long Island Bridge. Both expensive projects, both years away. The need now is right here and now. So what did you say? You thought maybe 4 years before it can be operational, right? That's a long wait.
It is a long time away. We are working as quickly as we can, even the permitting process itself, to get the approvals to rebuild the bridge in its exact old footprint. We're now 5+ years into that and have gotten most of the way there now. But what we know is that today, what you hear from people who are in need and who are living on the street is that the ideal situation is they can get housing with services and medical care that is in an individualized private room, right? Everyone would prefer to be in your own home and space rather than be in a large room with lots of beds and lots of other people around. Our emergency shelter system is set up so that we can absorb everyone who needs somewhere to sleep immediately. It is in that larger setting, although we are making some important changes so that it meets everyone's needs. But then those who need, some people only need to be there till they get back on their feet for a couple weeks, but some people need more longer term support and are eligible then for these transitional supported housing units. in order for us to have the scale to be able to immediately connect people to that supportive housing without having to wait in shelter housing, Long Island is a scale of space and facilities that we would really be able to serve the entire region's needs and more, because many people are coming from outside Boston.
How does the city of Quincy get involved in that?
We hope that we'll be able to work very closely.
You hope.
I've had great conversations with the mayor. I think every city leader knows and sees the need around the opiate crisis. We've had many conversations about how there are Quincy residents at Mass and
He would
Cass.
prefer I don't want to speak for him, but he says a ferry system would be better.
Yeah, we have tried to explore every possible way of setting up a ferry system. I pushed really, really hard, but at the end of the day, many of the folks who most need services are very medically fragile. There have been times I tried to go out and visit the island to tour it, but we couldn't go because the water was too choppy or the wind speeds were too high. So that's just not the level of reliability we need for emergency care.